So
Hey,
we are live right now.
woohoo! Welcome to
Oh,
the first live party of questioning history with Jack Wilson, everybody. The Jackmeister. How
Thanks
you
for
doing,
having me,
man?
Georgi and Craig. It's good to be in town.
I like how you did a little change in your voice to become you just turned into the Jackmeister all of a
Get
sudden.
turned. It's like putting on a comfy pair of slippers.
Yes, yes. So for those who don't know, now in the present or in the future, could you give a quick introduction of who you are and later I'll tell them why you're here.
Yes. All right. So my name, as you've probably heard, is Jack Wilson. Professionally, the Jackmeister, I'm called on my own YouTube channel. I write most of Kings and Generals Mongol videos, not the one we're going to be looking at today. I wrote their podcast series on the Mongols. I'm currently working on my PhD on the Golden Horde in the Mongol Empire, and I have a couple articles published and in the process of being published on the Mongols. So I am fairly knowledgeable on this area.
Absolutely. And I there was always going to be a sense of like after the Mongol season one that I wrote, there was always going to be a sense of okay, I'm working on something else now, but this was my baby. It couldn't be in better hands. Anyone who's interested in Mongol history, I guarantee you this is the channel to go to. Jack's incredible. He keeps coming out with new sources, new expertises, and really the Mongol history is something that's relatively like it had a spike recently, but if you want to be ahead of the curve, go to the Jackmeister.
No, I can
But
remember when I started posting videos, I think back in 2016.
yeah,
The reason I started doing it was because I
mhm,
can remember looking at like Lindy Beige,
yeah,
back when he was like one of the only guys putting history videos on YouTube, looking like Googling or you looking up on YouTube Lindy Beige Mongols and
yeah,
being like annoyed that it's like there was nothing here. All these guys at the time were
yeah,
only posting about crusades and World War II, this sort of thing.
yeah.
those
If you're
nasty
lucky,
World War
you
II
got
guys.
yeah, correct. Well, no, but Pacific War, no one was writing on the Pacific War on
True.
YouTube
It's a good
Yeah,
in
reason.
2016.
Not a lot of
So
people are interested.
it
But
was,
yeah, yeah. I don't think there was even Crusades. I think it was Rome,
yeah.
yeah.
ancient Greece, and World War II.
No, even Crusades, you probably, and when I say Crusade, it was probably just Richard the Lionheart and Saladin
Yes, yes,
kind of
yes,
thing
yes.
was
Because
all
of the
you
movie.
got.
Because of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So really, the last couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
it's been the transformation in seeing history topics outside of that. That's even in regards to World War II,
Yeah.
having Pacific War, like any theater other than D-Day or maybe Stalingrad being covered was like you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have seen that back in the day.
Pretty much.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. And the production value, like I uh watched pieces of that first season of the Mongols and looking back, we are so much like everything's better. The maps are better, the sources are better. I'm not talking about the Mongol, overall the historical community and how it presents history. It's just it's such a good time to be alive in. And I remember myself also when I was researching those videos, finding your video on is it Chinggis or Genghis Khan?
yes.
I remember
I
that
remember
was
you
how I
attacked
found
me. I
you.
said Genghis in some episode we did with me, and you
Yes.
like snapped at me right away.
Yeah, yeah. But today we're here because I'm going back to my roots and putting on my Mongol hat once more for the first time in many years because a script which I wrote and animated is finally out after a long, long journey. And this is the first alternative history video that Kings and Generals or Wizard Warriors have ever done. And I think it's something very, very different. I have tried to put something together that is very different from all the other alternative history takes that all the audience and you guys would know. Um, and this journey actually started in February of 2019, where in a Facebook group for Kings and Generals, me and a good friend of mine, Nitin from Flashpoint History, with his help, I put together this compilation of posts, which our lead animator Hazimin remembered, a lot of people loved them. They were circulating. They didn't really go viral, but a lot of people had a lot of love for this. And there was 4 posts, one on each theater. And Hasmin then recommended, after Wizards of Wars was born, for maybe this to be made. And a year later, after the recommendation, it's finally out, and it's my first animation. So I'm beyond excited to see what you guys think. There was a lot of challenges. The style of writing is completely different. This is technically fiction, but infused with a lot of history.
I am just
Which
going-
Jack helped me on. Oh, and Jack was so important for the creation of this thing, because there's always something great about having the support and the back, a foundation you can rest on, which is Jack and his expertise. Because I was asking him, where would the Mongols pass through? What were their weapons? How many of them would they be? How long would it take for them to make a new invasion? And how long it would take to ride from Mongolia and back? Why exactly did they return in the first place? Which he has so much material on. It's definitely not the cookie cutter excuse of Ogedei dying. But not only that, but he also wrote a piece of the script itself, which it just so good when you read it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, and I hope we can provide some additional behind the scenes stuff and answer some of the questions the viewers might have about exactly how this got made, because a lot of things were left on the cutting board.
All right, I'm just going to share the screen now so we can set
All
this
right,
up.
let's test it out.
Is the video live yet, or?
I don't think so. So
All
we
right.
somehow magically have a clip.
At least somehow.
Oh.
Now, I just
Are
want
we-
to make
are we-
sure. Our webcams
Yeah, you
are to
can-
the right, so it looks pretty good.
All right.
It's not so bad. Yeah. How does that look as an interface to watch this?
Pretty good. Pretty
Yeah,
And I just
think it's-
realized. Oh, you can see my whole screen, so you can even see my little test. Okay. Whoops.
good.
So yeah, we can
The-
start whenever.
Yeah. So, did you guys want to share some links for people to watch?
Yeah,
Us,
you just
like-
have to go to Wizards and Warriors, Mongols Attack Central Europe Alternative History, and the video should pop out whenever you're watching this. But before we watch it, I'm wondering how we should kick this off, Jack. Or we could just start by watching it and go from there. What do you think?
You can pause whenever. Well, I'll pause
Yeah.
for us.
I think we should just start and take it from there.
All right. This is my first time watching the final product, by the way. I have not heard the sound
Uh-oh.
effects and a lot of things.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I've not seen any of this since Georgi and I spoke about this like a year ago.
Wow.
So I have no idea where he went with the final final thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to let the audience know, if they don't already, yeah, we're in a Zoom call, share screening, and then live streaming this. So I hope this isn't a laggy nightmare. I think it'll work.
All right.
And we're about to find out. So I'll
Are
start
people watching us right now? Like, can you tell?
There's just a few, but I don't know if it's us, because I'm also in this room. Like, I can say hello on hello, and that's me from Pacific War Channel. But yeah, I doubt anyone will be able to find this, because it's a niche channel, and it's hard to find anybody on YouTube Live.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sharing a link a couple places, so let's see what happens.
Awesome. Awesome.
You can always bug the guys on the Discord. I'm sure they want to show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so just let me know when you want me to press play and when to pause, because I guess I'm the video guy now.
You got a
Okay.
promotion.
Yay.
Whew.
So Georgi, are we doing this?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
go. Let's go. Let's do it. And if you have any questions, specific, both of you, as a new Vienna expert, I'd love to hear them.
The Mongols were planning to reach the Atlantic Ocean, and there was no army strong enough to stand in their way. However, this was not to occur. But what if it did? As our viewers have long asked us to create some fun alternative history scenarios on the Kings and Generals channel, we decided to use the new platform that is Wizards and Warriors for that. with a 3-part series which will be focusing on the Mongol invasions of Western Europe that didn't occur in our history. We're going to use historically accurate numbers, defenses, plans, events, and diplomatic ties from our own reality with a single point of divergence. Let's dive in and see if the Mongols will be able to reach the Atlantic Ocean. Since we're staying strictly realistic, we won't have anything too drastic happen in our new timeline. But if you want to move beyond
this is an
alternate
ad
history and
within
into
another
fantasy,
video.
specifically of a
Genghis Khan on the
variety,
moon.
we've got a shout out for a new D&D rule set, our sponsor, Rule of Chaos. They're developing a new rule set for 5th edition D&D.
Nice.
Play as a powerful demon.
That
usually
normally I
disguised
skip
as a
these.
regular character.
Yeah.
There's a variety of demon types to choose from.
Wow,
with
this
all
looks
kinds of
great.
traits
I'm
and
gonna
abilities.
This
buy
is
one
really
right
cool.
now.
I didn't know this
For
was the
customizing
sponsor.
Your true form's appearance. Take wings, spider
Didn't
legs,
know we got
tentacles,
sponsors
or
that
you
weren't
can
about
be an
hair
object,
loss.
like an impressive treasure chest. The key difference is that you're going to be much more
Congratulations,
powerful
Georgi. You
than
didn't
the
get Shadow
average D&D
Legends.
character. However, that means you need to hide in the shadows and use deception to complete your missions. Because once people realize there's a demon among them, you can still be overwhelmed or hunted by equally powerful
Why was there
mobs and
Genghis Khan
specialists.
on the moon?
And whenever you use your demon ability,
I think because you can
spread
make your own
chaos,
character.
which causes special effects in the area
Ooh,
around
and
you that
cards.
build over time. So you'd better take that
Okay.
into account.
I
Rule of
hope this
Chaos is
paid for
launching
the
on
video.
Kickstarter and have produced a 120-page adventure book with all the details you'll need.
Sorry,
to
this is a
complete
great
rules
product.
and
Don't
some special
listen to me.
adventures you can run to try it all out. Go give it a look using our link in the description.
Nice. Not bad. This is I've
In
never seen this one.
1242,
Oh,
the
'cause this is
Okay,
so.
okay,
Do you want to
pause.
pause it so we
Pause,
can
pause,
look at the
pause.
map here?
Okay.
A lot of colors.
So
Okay.
this is.
Tell me what you think. If you want, I'll give you the breakdown whenever. I know it can be a little overwhelming. Give it a second.
Halicia, Volhynia might be a little far west. You're probably. Sorry, I can't read that. What's Halych? They attack Halych. So what happens when the Mongols actually withdraw in 1242?
Yeah.
And they pass through what's now Western Ukraine. Batu sends sort of armies across Halych and Volhynia to sort of bring more of the area under control. So, but probably what you've shown here is appropriate. And though it's sometimes shown as Bulgaria becoming part of the Mongol Empire at this point, this submission probably didn't happen until a couple years later.
So
The only
Yeah.
thing I would change is that it's still very common to show like the Rus principalities, Chernihiv, all you're seeing here up to Novgorod as being outside of the empire. And I never.
no, they're in. If you see those little red lines, that's my attempt at showing that they are
Oh, okay.
kind of like vassal states and part of the empire. And if you notice in Anatolia, there's red lines of the Sultanate of Rum. That's because this map is supposed to represent 45, not 42. But just
Okay.
so we don't make too many transitions and overcomplicated things, we decided to stick to that because most of Europe between 42 and 45 doesn't really change. And
No,
the
and
red
I'm
line
like-
on you didn't even notice with the Anatolia. But for all intents and purposes, what's the Mongol Empire before they attack again is everything in green, which is the principalities and the Sultanate of Rum, and technically Trebizond and your Armenian Sicilia. But we'll get there. It's explained in the intro.
Okay. And I see there's a valiant effort to get all the Holy Roman Empire.
Yes. This
there's-
final version of the Holy Roman Empire is the most simplified one, if you believe it or not.
I do.
Good God.
And I'll get to why it looks like that in a little bit.
And
Okay.
did the Teutonic Order have that much territory up in the Baltics already by
Yeah,
this point?
by 45 again. By
Okay.
45. And keep in mind something. This map is just the nature of the map. It has that projection that makes everything north of Poland really gets a little skewed and it's a little different, which is why Galicia Volhynia looks the way it does. Turów, if you look at the real map, doesn't look like that. Like even at Turów, everything gets distorted, and I tried my best to work around that. Yeah, this map is very like the Mediterranean looks the most accurate. Everything beyond that gets tricky.
Yeah. So in this map, this is all you. This is all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that why Bulgaria is so large?
No. But it gets larger. Oh, go on.
All right.
It's a
Invaded parts
pre-Nogai
of the Holy
Bulgaria.
Roman Empire and began an organized withdrawal, which resulted in a catastrophe for the entire Balkan region. Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, Bulgaria, and even the Latin Empire of Constantinople were subjected to the horrors of the Horde prior to becoming tributaries, before the Mongols regrouped and went home. But contrary to popular belief, the Mongols did not withdraw due to the death of their Khan. Instead, this was a planned
you help a
maneuver
little bit with the
aimed
birds?
at resting their warriors, who had been campaigning for many years, and replenishing the losses from attrition.
Can we
Dozens
pause
of
for just
prolonged
1 second there?
sieges-
Yeah.
So what theory you just heard, this is not the alternate history stuff. This is still our history. And this specifically is an argument put forward by a colleague of mine, Dr. Stephen Powell. And
Yes.
sort of his whole dissertation is sort of like the Khan dies in Mongolia and everyone retreats.
Yeah.
This is something that's been challenged very seriously in the scholarship for decades now, for a multitude of reasons. There's no actual evidence of the Mongols having a policy of everyone retreats on the Khan's death. That's basically something people have just said without very much evidence to support it. The Khan, Ogedei is his name. He dies on the 11th of December, 1241. Now, the retreat begins in the spring of 1242. I forget, it's like April, probably late April.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now the thing is, this is probably just too short a time, even for a Mongol rider, to make the trip all the way across Asia in the dead of winter. And this is, now I know everyone knows about the Yam routes and the Mongol postal routes and things. There isn't good evidence for it actually being in a good condition at this point, because this is all in what's today Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine. This is all recently taken land, and it seems like these postal routes were only properly established in the most reliable form.
Do you want to tell people, because I said that they've been campaigning for many years, but do you want to tell people how many years for them to get a grasp of what that is?
By this point, this army had been on campaign for 6 years.
6 years, yes,
So
exactly.
that's 6 years, traveling thousands of kilometers, probably fighting hundreds of battles almost continuously through what's all today Russia, Ukraine, and then in Hungary and the Balkans. Like that's, everyone loves these stories about, the Mongols are just these ultimate masters of warfare and things, but the Mongols are still just humans. And there's a certain point where you basically risk your army disintegrating from constant campaigning
and overstretching.
So
when I was researching battlefield medicine and looking at the ancient accounts, think of Caesar, think of Alexander, one of the things that really struck me was the reports of how high respiratory failure was due to the constant dust they were inhaling from the marching colonies. There was actually, and they were aware of this. People just didn't care about writing things like this, but the Romans, for example, were fully aware that the further back you go in a marching colony, the higher chance you are to die of respiratory failure, because there's these giant clouds of dust.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to imagine, but there's no roads, and these are thousands of men and cattle, baggage trains moving along a short pass, tons of dust. And they're all breathing each other's air. It's terrible. So if you take that and put it on horseback with the Mongols for 6 years through all these kinds of terrains, that's one element I want to bring to the viewer that you may not think of, because you may think of cold, you may think of heat, but think of the dust they've been inhaling for 6 years. And siege conditions were horrendous in this era, and they did hundreds of sieges probably.
Oh, of course. And I mean, people get injured. You just ride a horse every day for 6 years. The animals get injured, but these people have been fighting. Guys have cuts, wounds, God knows what, strange shoulders and things. But also, at this point, when the sources describe the withdrawal from Hungary, they're not rapidly running out. It's a slow, methodical, basically turning over everything they didn't destroy in the first Passover.
Yep.
We even have one source, Rashid al-Din. He's from the Ilkhanate, writing around 1300, but he's a pro-Mongol source, and he even says this army withdrawing didn't learn about Ogedei's death until after the withdrawal began. It seems simply, but the Battle of Mui, the Mongols probably saw as a great victory in the sense that this was a hard-fought thing.
Yeah.
That the Battle of Mui in the Mongolian accounts, and we do have some, but they usually come through Persian or Chinese translations of them.
Yeah.
The Battle of Mui appears as a very difficult encounter, and the Mongols saw basically the Hungarians as this great enemy, a great enemy who still fell to them, but it was a serious occasion nonetheless, in which, if we believe both Mongol and European accounts, some of the Mongol princes actually wanted to withdraw during the battle, especially over the bridge.
Yeah.
Over the Shire River.
I think we should get to it. And because at this rate, it might take us 5 hours to go through the 30 minutes.
Okay. And since I'm kind of like the video guy, I'll just read a few of the comments. Oh my god, this Jack guy is incredibly attractive.
Nice.
We can carry on. Now I wanted to read that one.
Come on.
Raids being repulsed in Austria and Bohemia, as well as mountain ambushes in Croatia and Bulgaria, took a toll on the Mongolians, but they had every intention to return. The plan for the second invasion was delayed due to the internal rivalries that arose as a consequence of the Great Khan's behavior. After his favorite son Chochu died in 1237, Ogedei drowned his sorrow in alcohol and withdrew from governing, allowing his court and wife Torigeny to create plots that eroded the unity of the Mongols. But what if Chochu didn't die, and Ogedei remained politically active and healthy for the remainder of his now extended life? The year is 1245.
Pause.
And after a...
I was struggling quite a bit at figuring out what the point of divergence, which we just saw, would be. And one of my biggest pet peeves with most alternative history is that they think so much about the end result, and they don't really care about how it gets there. Or they just assume that something happened. Oh, the Nazis got the nuke, and now let's talk about a world where they have the nuke and they won, because you want to talk about the world if the Germans won, right?
Exactly.
And I feel like sometimes the changes people assume in alternative history are not enough to change the timeline as much as they think it would, or they're unreasonable. In this scenario, I looked at every angle, and what I decided on was he really did have a favorite son. He really did start drinking a lot more after he died in China, in some siege somewhere. The passage for this guy, if you want to look him up, there's barely anything. And it was the perfect variant, because people die or not die in sieges all the time. So right now in this timeline we're watching, he just doesn't die. He's not a notable prince. He's not on this invasion. He's just alive and very young. But that allows Ogedei to not drink himself to death. He still will die, probably sooner rather than later, but the alcoholism doesn't allows him to live for at least an extra 4 more years, which brings us here. So essentially I'm saying that if Ogedei is not dead, this would have happened. Which, what do you think about that, Jack? How plausible do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, Ogedei, one of the clear things about him in every single source that discusses him is that he had a severe alcohol problem, like before even his the end of his life and the death of his son. Now, it seems that this is partly a cultural thing, and one of the common things is that as a whole, the Mongolian elite were substantial drunkards at times, with Ogedei sort of the alcoholic par excellence. His drinking worsens after the death of his closest brother, Tolui, in 1233. But Hochu was Ogedei's favorite son, and this is sort of what's the year, 1237?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So Hochu dies while on campaign against the Song dynasty,
Yes.
and he was Ogedei's heir, as far as we can tell. And once he dies, there is a change, because at that point, we basically stop seeing mentions of Ogedei issuing commands in government, and now it's sort of his, like you said in the video, his wife Torogene taking over. And what also happens is Ogedei ends up trying to make a whole bunch of his other sons and grandsons heirs.
Yeah.
But he seems to change his mind a lot, not really, and he's probably in various states of sobriety when he makes these decisions. The ultimate, and funnily enough, the son who ultimately succeeds him in 1246, like he becomes Khan in 1246, is Guyuk, who is Torogene's oldest son, and who, as far as I can tell, Ogedei never made him heir. That basically, this is like the one son who Ogedei looked at and went, this guy should not succeed me. He's the one who ends up succeeding him. But this is why, because Ogedei never did that, it takes Torogene 4 years to organize Guyuk becoming Khan. And Guyuk, interestingly enough, he never seems very in the election process. He never really seems an active figure. It kind of seems he thought too. He also shouldn't be.
Craig, could you pull up 10 seconds to the illustration? Go on, Jack.
So he's almost a reluctant.
Yeah, go back
figure.
to the illustration real quick.
What illustration?
In the video.
Oh,
this video, just go to
scenario here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to represent that in this illustration. Well, I didn't draw this. I just animated it. But this person sitting down with the cup, that's supposed to represent Ogedei. The woman screaming, that's Torogene.
I actually have a question about the cup. This is not my strongest suit. What I know about the Mongolian Empire is actually from a lot of books that aren't historic, let's say. But is it true, this story about a physician coming to him about his alcoholism problem and saying something along the lines, you should only have like a glass or a cup a day? And he is this famous case where he's like, oh, okay, and he just gets a guy to make him a huge cup. Is there any basis in reality for this?
Yes. That is really. I put an article on medievalists.net called The Mongols and Alcohol, and I talk about some of these specific things. So this isn't a physician. This is his brother, Chadai, coming up and telling him, we have to reduce the amount of cups you drink per day. So he goes, oh, yes, my brother, I will. But then so he reduces the amount of cups, so it just makes each cup larger. Yeah. There's another example. One of the advisors in the court, Iluchutsai, tells him, he takes like some sort of container of alcohol and he goes, look how the wine corrodes the metal around the lip of this. Can you imagine what it does to your organs? And then Ogedei goes, you're right. That is horrible. And then gives him a bunch of golden like treasures and things and then keeps drinking.
Oh no, anyway.
I kind of like the way I read that is like this is towards the end of his life and he just does not care anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of saying like, that sounds like a benefit. I'll die sooner.
That kind of gives me some Robert Baratheon vibes.
Yeah.
Mighty Mongol warrior back in the day, but now just likes to drink.
Yeah.
But let's keep going. It was 344. Yeah, I just think it's a great point of divergence, which is realistic. Bato also had a lot to gain, so he's back leading the army. Let's go.
Raising their mounts, the Mongols set their sights on Europe once more, ready to finish what they started. Among the veterans of the previous campaigns under the overall command of Batu, the army is joined by the successful contingent under Baiju Noyan, who defeated the Seljuk Turks and their allies at the Battle of Kozidag in 1243, and secured the tributary status of all of Anatolia except Nicaea. Many Chinese engineers and healers were also brought in, while tributaries like Bulgaria, Serbia and the Kievan Rus were forced to supply infantry soldiers for the army, as well as tactical information.
Can we pause for 1 second here?
Yeah.
So this is true. The Mongols even had Rus soldiers during the actual campaign into Europe in Hungary and Poland in 1241, 1242, especially from Haluchina-Volhynia. And over the succeeding decades of Mongol raids and the second Mongol invasions in the 1280s, There were lots of Rus troops and Rus princes partaking in these attacks. And this is very common in general Mongol campaigns, as these are not all Mongols on horseback with bows, but also a lot of subject peoples. Some of these Rus princes were also involved in campaigns in the Caucasus against the Alans, and some Rus soldiers were apparently also even sent all the way to China for campaigning against the Song dynasty and afterwards.
Alexander Nevsky and Daniel of Galicia have been particularly picked by me because of what happens in our timeline. They're the most plausible Mongolian supporters, but I won't spoil too much.
And Daniel of Galicia personally joined the campaign with 5,000 soldiers each, hoping to appease their overlords and expand their holdings. Overall, the army consisted of 120,000 mixed troops from across the empire, which would be separated into 4 armies, each with a specific goal. The first army, led by Subutai and Alexander Nevsky, was ordered to ride out from Novgorod and attack the states along the Baltic coast, while the second army, commanded by Kadan, Orda, and Daniel of Galicia, would repeat the route of the previous invasion of Poland, with the third main army, commanded by Batu, Burka, and Shiban, penetrating the Carpathian Mountains from multiple entry points.
Did you see?
Yeah, I saw that.
What the? What? Could you pull
There
back,
are
Rick?
Flash of something on screen.
Yeah, that was like a
Commanded
frame
by
of
Batu,
something.
Burka, and
Yeah, that
Huh.
was a stilled image that came up for like a split second.
Okay.
No,
Easter
This
eggs.
is-
No,
By
leave it,
Batu,
leave it, leave it.
Burka,
It's fine.
Subliminal
It's perfect.
penetrating
message.
the Carpathian Mountains from
Subliminal
multiple
messages to
entry
buy
points
merch.
to overwhelm Hungary. Finally, the last army under Baiju Noyan planned to make its way across the Balkans, solidifying Mongol control and gathering troops from the newly acquired tributary states. Dozens of messengers were prepared
Sorry.
to
Now
coordinate
this
the full
actually
group.
echoes quite well a lot of sort of Mongol strategic offensives over this period, where they'd attack across a wide front with sort of multiple armies acting in cooperation. So, and it's sort of what Georgi's done here is really mirror the 1241 campaign on a larger scale. And the size of the army too, this is probably realistically what the Mongols thought would have been necessary for taking part in an actual conquest of Europe, because it seems to mirror what the sizes of the armies needed for campaigns in China and the Middle East that resulted in the great conquests there. The Mongols probably thought Europe, they didn't think Europe was some poor little region. They probably thought this is, a significant undertaking to conquer, and we need a strong force to do this.
They saw resistance. They saw trouble in Bohemia and Austria and Croatia and Bulgaria, and they knew what it would take. So we know the Mongols were good at planning. So this is a number that, number one, they could make. And I'm not specifying here how many of those 120 are Mongols and how many are not. We know that 10,000 are from these 2 Rus princes, but the rest is up for grabs. But I think like a good chunk of that is a purely Mongol horse army, mounted army. But
I just want to say the image of Batu on here. This is taken from the 2007 film Mongol by Sergei Bodrov. And so that actor who plays Chinggis Khan in the movie, so that's that image of him is from Chinggis Khan. He's actually a Japanese actor. He appears in
This is the level we're at. Now I'm really scared. I was wondering who would pick that up, because originally it was going to be one of these images that you can see like on Orda and Kadan, but I felt like for Batu it needs to be something more.
Yeah.
So I went for this because I couldn't find a decent one of Batu himself. But well done.
Yeah, but anyways, that actor, that Japanese actor, he appears in the Thor movies playing one of Thor's buddies. I don't know which one, but the Japanese one. I
know him. I actually
I
know it's a forgettable character, but today I was watching a scene where another Marvel character from Wong actually plays in
Kublai in the Marco Polo series.
Yes. So nice connection there. All right, let's go.
Allowing them to converge on the Holy Roman Empire as one. The countless captives and spies the Mongols had gathered from across Europe informed them that while the West had formidable fortifications and warriors, they were divided. England under Henry III had just invaded France and was defeated at the Battle of Taillebourg in 1242, but the French king Louis IX gave them lenient terms as he was more focused on the upcoming crusade to retake Jerusalem, which fell in 1244 to a Khwarezmian army which the Mongols displaced. The kingdoms of Portugal, Castile and Aragon had just expanded their power to Lisbon, Seville and Valencia after the most successful phase of the Reconquista, but most importantly, the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II.
The world of Europe right now is shown in a very different way with this map, and the key thing here is that I've tried to show that this is a world not of nationalities and cultures. This is a world of feudal bond. And what you see, let's say with France right now, you see the dark blue, that's the French crown. That's France, that's under Louis, which is incredibly small, right? You can see the small French outline that shows France, the Kingdom of France, but within it, Brittany is its own thing. England has a big share, and there's different spots. Each of these spots is meant to represent like a big dynasty, not even a single person. And there's a lot of overlap. For example, you see a lot of pink on Montpellier and these little dots in Carwat. That's Aragon. That's actually the crown of Aragon through the county of Barcelona. It's a mess. And you also have the brother of Louis, who holds Provence, which is outside of France. And in Castile, I've shown Castile being yellow, bright yellow, and the places where there's a lot of local autonomy are darker. So I've tried to represent the feudal bonds. England as well, if you look up, is also represented that way. I've shown the counties with the most local autonomy that were not obeying Henry or took part in the Second Baron Uprising. But that does not apply to the HRE. The HRE functions in this way. Purple, there's a war. The HRE is in war with the Pope, or it's a clusterfuck. But if you see purple, dark purple is the emperor, light purple supports the emperor, and everything yellow and green hates the emperor, is in a war with them. And there's kind of like two separate wars with the two factions, one in Germany and one in Italy, fighting each other.
And interesting just regarding the point of Mongol intelligence services.
Yes.
So in real life, after this point, there's a couple papal envoys, Franciscans, who traveled to the Mongol Empire. And they recorded their journeys, and they recorded their basically interviews with some of these khans, including Batu.
In 46, sent by Innocent IV, correct?
Yeah. So that's John de Plano Carpini. He arrives in Mongolia in 1246 because he's there in time for the coronation of Guyuk.
Yeah.
Anyways, he records. So John de Plano Carpini, he records an interview with Batu, and they're asked, this might even be William of Rubruck, who's 1253, 1252.
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
One of the two. I know it's one of the two. I always get the names mixed up.
Yeah.
Then they meet with Batu, and he asks them who they think the strongest monarchs in Europe are, and then they give their answer, and then Batu goes, "That's incorrect. The strongest monarchs are the King of France, the Emperor, and the Pope." So this is showing the level of Mongol interest and knowledge in Europe at this time, that they're basically calculating who the strongest monarchs in Europe are. One of these things that also appears in these accounts is these guys keep getting asked, what are the resources of Europe? How many animals do they have? What's the pastures like? What do they grow? Because they want these things. And they think they're still going to come and get them. This makes it
super interesting to think that this really could have been our fate or something like it. Go on.
And waged war against Pope Innocent IV, who had just excommunicated him for the fourth time, and the empire was split in two. And so on September 5th, 1245, a divided Europe was flooded with reports of the returning invaders. Alexander
What made you choose that
who
date?
had guarded Novgorod from their attacks,
Pause.
as well as against Sweden.
Why September 5th?
I noticed a trend that I don't know September 5th exactly if that has any particular connection. I know at one point I used August 9th because it's my sister's birthday, but September 5th I don't remember. I think it was just like I noticed that around September is when a lot of Mongolian invasions begin.
You're absolutely right. The preferred
So
time
that's why.
they would begin a campaign in the fall, campaign through the winter, and then you sort of begin to withdraw in the spring, and then over the summer they rest the horses and men. This happens again and again and again across the empire.
Yeah.
So, and probably the initial withdrawal from Europe in 1242 probably began like this, because again they're withdrawing in the spring after they just campaigned all through the winter and everything, and probably returning to the steppes, initially planning just to rest troops and horses for the summer, and then political events happen to draw their armies away in real life.
Exactly. Let's go.
Sweden now pressed his advantage, easily annexing Estonia, whose Danish overlord was in the middle of a war with Holstein. The first Grand Duke of Lithuania, Mindaugas, knew he didn't stand a chance, and instantly submitted to the Mongols, even joining their ranks to fight the Holy Order.
You don't have YouTube Premium, Craig.
The Teutonic Knights were sent by the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II to Prussia in 1230 in order to convert the local pagans, who were divided in many tribes and protected their culture. While they lacked unity, they were ferocious in battle and managed to capture and kill many knights. So when the Mongols arrived in the midst of their uprising...
Just 10 seconds. These Prussians who worshipped the old gods and were the last group of people in Europe to be Christianized, they are known for killing these Teutonic knights by burning them alive. Like, what they would do is they would capture them and they couldn't penetrate their armor. So they would just burn them, roast them in their armor. And this was popular enough for it to be like a scary tale to tell back in their homes for the knights who survived. So this is 45 is the perfect time to be in that region because there's a massive Prussian uprising there.
Good.
Many turned to the religiously tolerant invaders. The fortresses in the region were strong, and Subutai preferred to enlist the help of the Prussians, who assisted Chinese engineers in exploiting the weaknesses of the fortifications.
So we got Russians, Prussians, Lithuanians
in siege warfare, but the smaller, well-defended castles and citadels were capable of slowing down the campaign. Meanwhile, the more familiar Poland fell even quicker than last time. After the Mongols killed Henry II in Legnica in 1241, the remaining dukes waged war on each other as they scrambled for the throne. Using the same strategy of divide and conquer, the Mongols quickly took over the lands, crushing the half-rebuilt castles in their wake, and prevented any sizable force being assembled against them. Lublin, Poznan, Gniezno and Krakow were razed to the ground in quick succession, and in May 1246, Duke Bolesław II the Horned, who ruled the western part of Poland, decided to join the Mongols in an attempt to avoid the devastation they brought and gain power over the other fallen duchies. Kadan was well aware that he needed allies to maintain control over the newly conquered lands and accepted this submission. Bela IV of Hungary was the only man in Europe anticipating these events and did everything in his power to prepare for them. He settled Cumans and Germans in the devastated regions, started the construction of dozens of stone castles, and began training elite heavy cavalry. However, the Mongol attack came earlier than he expected.
So this is all true, except most of these castles tended to be built in the western part of Hungary, west of the Danube. And it seems part of the reason here is because a substantial percentage of the Hungarian, like the population of the Hungarian kingdom, now lived on the west side of the Danube. So there was resources, tax base, and labor to construct the fortifications there. Lots of these people had lived in the center part of the Great Hungarian Plain, and there was probably already a process of people moving out of the plain, and the Mongols came in and really sped that up.
Yeah. these three flags you can see, these are the passes. I looked through Google Maps and all kinds of various sources to find also places where the Mongols attacked from the first invasion, and I found today what are the best passes through the Carpathians, and what you see was the reality and where
there was another
international
pass,
traffic goes today.
I think one or two more passes
Yeah.
that they took in 1239, 1240 that you're actually just missing on there.
There's one, if you, yeah, exactly, Craig. On the bottom flag, if you go a little bit to the left, there's a couple of there. Like in that area, there's a couple of more passes there, but I didn't want to make it too, crowded in the map for the viewer.
It's already a busy map.
Yeah. All right.
Expected, and their multi-prong attack through the Carpathian Mountains surprised him. The massive infrastructural projects were mostly half done, as the reeling nation, still suffering from the famine caused by the previous invasion, was overwhelmed by Batu. Smaller skirmishes occurred across the Great Hungarian Plain, especially between the Mongols and their Kuman cousins, but none of these engagements were able to make a dent in the Mongol war machine. In March 1246, the Hungarian king fled to the Dalmatian Islands as he did before, while both his old capital of Esztergom and the new one, Buda, were destroyed. Batu already knew that the islands were the refuge Bela would seek, and was prepared for it better than last time. The Fourth Army under Baiju, coming in through the Balkans, chased Bela after solidifying the allegiance of Bulgaria, Serbia and Bosnia. The fleeing king was intercepted near Zagreb, and despite the desperate last stand of his royal guard, was captured, allowing the Mongols to use him. While the King of Hungary was in captivity, they began spreading letters with his royal seal, urging the people of Hungary and beyond to surrender to the Great Khan.
Pause.
I urge you...
Here we go.
So this is something, what you just described, sending fake letters. This is something the Mongols did a couple times, and even in Hungary when they were actually there in 1241, 1242, because they actually, after the Battle of Muhi, they killed like Bela's chancellor or something, and they managed to get like the seal of the Hungarian kingdom off of his body and did this exact
exact thing. Super clever psychological warfare.
Well, deliberately sowing doubt among the enemies, and this is part of the reason why the attack over such a large frontier as this creates a lot of doubt as to where are they going to attack next. No one can send troops to assist someone else if they think there's going to be a Mongol party coming up here. If you imagine you're one of these kings in Central Europe at the time receiving these reports, it's just going to seem like there's Mongols everywhere in every single direction. That's the way it seemed in 1241. This is how it's going to seem, except only much worse on a whole new level in fake 1245.
Now to end your resistance against the Tatar hosts, and do not impede their progress. Do not deny their demands or requests for food and supply. When they command the destruction of our walls, we must do so, for now their horsemen are our wall, stronger than any stone and mortar. Accept their rule without struggle, and fighting in the Hungarian kingdom will quickly end. This is my command as King of Hungary and Croatia, Bela, sent on the 7th of April, 1246.
This was written by Jack, and it's so good. But I want to hear from Craig a little bit. What do you think so far? We're exactly halfway into the video. Tell me, because I know you love alternative history. How does this feel like so far?
I'm a bit flabbergasted by the logistics. I mean, I understand the Mongolian Empire had, in human history, probably one of the best logistics ever seen. But I question, even for them to be in to go into Central Europe, how would they be able to consolidate so much? Because they're vassals that are with them. I mean, there would be someone who would seek alternatives, seek self-glory. I just, how far to get to the Atlantic? I have a hard time believing it myself.
This video won't. This is just part one, obviously, but I hope this is a great question. I'm sure a lot of people will have. There's only so much I can say in a script, right? But I've used my ability as an animator here to try to give you a bit of an answer, and we'll go through it now. You see how Bulgaria and Serbia expanded? You see how Croatia has not been conquered, or Bosnia? You see how the Polish guy, the Duke, they turned him into the king. You see how Lithuania expanded, the Prussian tribes expanded. Like, a lot of this consolidation that you're talking about exactly is the Mongols handing out titles to people who support them or surrender to them. To me, this is the key behind their success. That's part one of the key. Part two of the key is, again, even Poland, which you saw in like 6 different colors, it's actually 10 different colors, because when the Mongols killed their king in the Battle of Legnica, we think, because of Hollywood, that when mankind faces the worst thrown at them, we unite. That's rarely the case in history. And in fact, when the king was brutally killed in Legnica, all the Polish dukes started fighting. And this is after the Mongols wiped so many of them out. They don't have a standing army. They don't have allies yet anymore. And exactly like Bela was preparing, credit where credit is due, because he didn't die. Probably the same fate would happen to Hungary as well if he died. But the Polish king died, and they're all fighting. Like, they're essentially all, even family members are fighting. So it's a lot easier to break them apart. In fact, the one place they're slowed down, as you can see, is the Teutonic Order, because they have all these fortresses. But even they lost so many men to Alexander Nevsky in the Battle of the Ice. So far, this script, this invasion of Eastern Europe goes on so quickly because there's nothing to stop them. And the geography is really not on the European side here. The Hungarian passes, they just walk through them. Poland, it's already devastated and fighting each other. Denmark and the Prussians are very weakened. On the way back, on the withdrawal, which you would see in the intro, the Mongols already crushed Serbia and Bulgaria. There's excavations and archaeological evidence of a steep populational decline in northern Bulgaria as they go back towards Ukraine. The question is what happens later, and we'll see. But your doubts are completely valid.
Yeah, I don't see it as an issue of conquest. It's as occupation. That's where I see the issue. Once they've moved on, because it's so far away. Once they've consolidated the furthest reaches, I just don't see how these furthest reaches wouldn't look for a better deal, try and rebel, build,
But this is what happens in history, and what generally happens on these kind of campaigns. Timothy May, Dr. Timothy May's called it sort of the tsunami strategy, where the Mongols, they'll campaign and they'll devastate an area further than what they're actually incorporating into the empire, and then withdraw back to sort of that better position. But it means there's kind of this buffer on the far. And some people argue,
it's like a slingshot. It's like they will bounce back. Like, I'll give you an example, Craig. Let's just say a hypothetical. I'm not saying this is going to happen. Let's say the Mongols reach the Rhine in Germany and they reach the Alps in Italy. All of Italy and all Germany get squashed, right? And the Mongols are successful and they decide to pull back. Will they control Germany and Italy? No. But they will consolidate Bohemia, Hungary, Balkans, and Poland. That's my guess, because that's what happened in the first invasion. They crushed Hungary, they crushed Poland, but they bounced back, and what they consolidated actually is what you see in red.
And my number one... Oh, go ahead.
No. Yeah, I was just going to say, what we see a lot of is this: they find a way to cooperate with the local leaders.
Yeah.
So what happens in the Rus principalities is now the Mongols sort of establish a system where the Rus princes now depend on the Khans for legitimacy. So they have to go to the Khan to show homage, but in return there's a level of military assistance. So now these princes, in their confrontations with other princes, or if they're being attacked by, say, Lithuanians, they can call on the Khan for military aid and these things. And so the Rus princes are, and as well as other institutional things such as the church in Rus, this is quickly given tax incentives, freedom over their own lands, basically do as they
Yeah.
please, all of these things. So what the Mongols are actually quite good at doing is making sort of the primary influences in a state, so the nobility and the church, cooperate with them on the threat of being destroyed.
Yeah.
So the displeasure of how the local people felt about these things, the Mongols don't care about that. Now, it's not
Yeah.
that uprisings never happen. There's actually quite a number of uprisings across the empire, and some of these ones are actually led by the local people. Now, the Mongols will actually have garrison forces, usually on the border of the steppe and sort of the sedentary zone, called Tama. And so these will often be commanded by Mongols or Central Asians. And some of the force will be Mongol or nomadic, and lots of it will just be local troops. And these are what will respond to sort of uprisings or consolidations, or at least make a threat of
Yeah.
a Mongol response, rather than having a whole army of horsemen run out from the steppe into Germany to put down a revolt.
Yeah,
And again, a reminder that this is a world of feudalism and serfdom. So when the Mongols wipe out your lord and you're not tied to your lord anymore, and or they install a new lord, that's just it. There's not so much a consciousness of, oh, we are Polish. I don't think there was a thing like we are Polish. In fact, Poland at the time, parts of it were under the vassals of Bohemia. It was a mess. So that when there is no we are Polish, that makes it a lot easier for this force, which using fear mongering and the idea of religious tolerance, it makes it like they were tuned specifically for this era to be the greatest conquering machine the world's ever seen. Everything played into their hand.
And is it the majority of their forces outside of the steppe going into Europe at this point?
Of that 120 number,
Is that
at least half is Mongols. At
So-
least half.
China is just not taking this opportunity to
Well,
finally rid the yoke? Or
so
You or me, Jack? Yeah,
what,
take this one.
what I would say with this is, so if we consider the height of the Mongol Empire in the 1250s, the Great Khan Mengke initiates a significant system that basically leverages armies like this on 2, maybe 3 fronts at once.
Yeah.
So what's actually happening in China at this point is the opening rounds of the war with the Song Dynasty,
Yeah.
which at this point is basically border skirmishes and stuff. The Song Dynasty never shows any great ability at offensive operations going into North China,
of course.
and it seemed they wouldn't really attempt this. And of course, you have to remember, they don't know the rest of the Mongol armies in Europe, because they don't know where Europe is. They don't once Mongol armies leave their immediate frontier, they have a vague idea of the armies are in the west.
Yeah.
But what that specifically means to them, they don't know.
And you will notice that right now we're talking about the Jochi faction. Batu's leading this thing, not Ogedei. So there's still administrative and military power back in Mongolia, able to take care of that.
So it seems to me this is the perfect time in history for such, a cluster event to occur. It's like the perfect
100%. 100%, and we haven't even gotten to the H3 papal conflict yet.
Yeah, well, let's let it roll a bit longer. It's going to take
Yeah,
forever
yeah.
if not.
Yes.
By the summer, the entirety of Eastern Europe was under the hooves of Mongol horses, with only a few stone fortresses in Prussia still resisting the constant barrage of the Chinese torsion mangonels. The forces of Batu and Baiju merged and marched for Vienna on August 9th, not just for conquest, but vengeance. The Duke of Austria, Frederick the Quarrelsome, was one of the few who managed to defy the Mongols at both Mohi and his homeland. But that was against small raiding parties. As he now faced the full might of the Mongol army, he was forced to make a choice: withdraw towards the Loibel Pass, alongside the Dukes of Carinthia and Carniola, as his emperor requested, or merge his force with the only ruler capable of meeting the Mongols in open combat, King of Bohemia Wenceslaus I, who commanded 2,000 knights, 4,000 crossbowmen, and 15,000 infantry. Frederick was never one to back out of a fight, so he evacuated his citizens and marched towards Prague with a 5,000-strong army on the 16th of August, while a token garrison was left to guard Vienna and other notable strongholds. The Mongols employed
Prague is
their
the
usual
largest
tactic
city
of
north
overwhelming
of the
their
Alps.
foes by attacking Bohemia from multiple sides on September 14th, with Kadan and his Polish contingent attacking from the north, while Orda and Daniel's Ruthenian army attacked from the east. The latter was delayed for over a month, as constant harassment from the Bohemian raiders slowed their movement in the densely forested passage. Palisades were built with large ditches dug behind them, and night raids were frequent. The Ruthenians were ahead of the main line, as they were seen as far less valuable than the Mongol elite soldiers, which made them disgruntled and slowed the progress even further. One night, while they made camp,
Did you animate this
Daniel
part?
confronted Orda.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you changed my wine for fermented milk, you said I was one of you now. Yet why are my men the ones getting killed? The King of Ruthenia was slapped across the face for even raising his voice to Orda. In September, Orda and his army were in a desperate need of supplies, so when they made the crossing, they ravaged the countryside. However, after several raiding parties went missing, he was forced to pick some of his best men to scout the region and locate the enemy host. It didn't take long before the riders caught a lesser noble, who informed the Mongols that the Bohemian king was preparing his forces to attack Kadan in the north. Orda immediately began constructing pontoon bridges over the Morava River, leaving Daniel of Ruthenia to guard them, while the more mobile Mongols united with the second force. Word was sent to Batu of their movements, but it was too late, as Orda walked right into the Bohemian trap. On the 21st of
Pause.
September, when
I tried my best. I don't know if this is common for kings and generals and how other animators do it, but I legitimately jotted down exactly. I took note of attrition and garrison forces and everything so far, and I made one unit be exactly 1,000 soldiers. So if you want the numbers for the two sides, you can easily find that, and you can not only see the armies, but you can see exactly how many bowmen there are, how many cavalry, how many lancers. I hope this is something cool. Except for the wagons, they're not 1,000.
1,000 wagons.
Go on.
Wenceslaus had actually camped near Brno with his 21,000 men. Once the Mongols encountered the army, they began harassing it before feigning a retreat.
Feign retreat,
The
baby!
Bohemian heavy-mounted knights took the bait and charged against the faster light cavalry, which occasionally stopped to take a shot at the pursuers. Some knights turned back, but others charged in before the Mongols surrounded them. The exhausted and wounded horses could not keep up, and one by one they fell to the ground or began to flee, only to be picked off by heavy lancers. By the time the bodies were ransacked, the main Bohemian force arrived, and the Mongols realized that the battle was far from over. A smaller 5,000-strong force, led by Frederick the Quarrelsome, had crossed over through Olomouc and was reported moving against the Mongols from the north, and this time Orda called for an immediate withdrawal through the pontoon bridges on the Morava River. However, this was when the Ruthenians, who were tired of being mistreated by the Mongols and knew this was their only hope of being free again, betrayed Orda. When a small portion of his army made it across, the Ruthenians slaughtered them and set fire to the bridges. The Mongols were stuck, surrounded, with nowhere to retreat to. Orda knew his only chance was to fight his way out, so he ordered his heavy lancers to charge at the Austrian Duke, while the horse archers performed the caracole maneuver, sending whistling arrows flying at the crossbowmen to cover the main charge. The shrieking sounds terrified the Bohemian horses, who froze up while the crossbowmen
it's an
returned
ad.
fire.
We're used to
That's
buying
okay,
everything
that's
online
okay.
these days. So why not contact
So
lenses?
interesting.
It's
What
quick,
you've
it's
basically
straightforward.
described is the how the forces of Otto I defeated the Magyars. What was Lechfeld? Isn't that the battle
Yeah,
in-
I remember taking inspiration from several different
Yeah.
battles. But what do you guys think about the betrayal? Exactly what
I was
Craig was
waiting
saying.
for it because it has to happen, right?
Yeah.
In the medieval
You know,
ages,
it happened on a but less than you would expect.
Yes,
You know,
that is
it's
true. That line about the fermented milk is actually a real line in a
From the
different context. They did say that to him.
Volhynian Chronicle, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
I am
But go on.
I'm a little curious though, because I'm not a specialist in this, of course, but
Yeah.
for the initial campaigns in Europe, a large reason why they were so successful was because the Europeans didn't understand strategy, tactics of the Mongols, even technology, especially when it came to gunpowder and stuff. So if the Mongols are invading, going further into Europe, aren't the Europeans eventually going to be able to hire a bunch of Mongols, learn more from them, and adapt their warfare? Because that would
Really
give
good
them
question.
they're infected with this like new culture, and then they're going to adapt to it, use it because they'll see benefits. Like, wouldn't France, their knights would change? Like, this would be completely different, wouldn't it?
The thing is, you don't just adopt horseback archery.
No, I know
It's
it.
something
You have to do
you
it from a
basically
childhood.
have to be grown into, like as a culture to support and pursue. It's not that you can't have these kind of guys.
Yeah.
It's hard to make them a
And
substantial.
they're not nomadic, completely
and-
different set of cultural background. It doesn't really
And
work,
most who
yeah.
met them died, Craig. Most who met them died.
Okay, that's true. Yeah.
But
Eh,
also,
but he brought something really great up, Jack. I haven't really thought about this. A scenario. Do you think it's plausible? A scenario where European forces hiring Mongol riders, same way which happened with the Normans and the Vikings. Because I don't
not
see
at
that.
this point. What I would say
Later
though
on.
is they'd hire like Kipchaks and things.
Yes,
And these other
Kumans.
nomadic people who already live and fight in similar way to the Mongols. Now, some of these people are already in Europe, in Hungary, and this is part of why Bela the Fourth wanted so badly.
Yeah.
Now this exactly what you're thinking here. Why don't they get some of these people to fight the Mongols? This is exactly what happens with the Mamluks.
Yes.
The Mamluks not only buy more Kipchaks, but they actually collect Mongol refugees, bring them in, and to better learn the Mongol techniques. This happens with the Delhi Sultanate in India. This happens even with the Jin dynasty in North China. They form an army. They call it like the Loyal and Filial Army, and it's made up of refugees, like Kipchak people, Turkic peoples who are in the Mongol army and defect and are rewarded by the Jin dynasty to fight for them and help them learn Mongol tactics. One of these armies actually defeats Subadai in battle in 1232, I think. So it's not that this thing couldn't happen. In fact, it very well might. It basically happens with Bela's insistence on getting the Cumans.
Yeah.
It's a
But
matter
the humans
of
are fewer, the Mongols are superior. It's on the Hungarian plain. Like, we even saw a quick machinima there. But yeah, you need a lot more humans, you needed more time, and you needed the Mongols to be at a worse state.
What you would like. I think the closest to Craig's example would be something like in a Mongol civil war after this. You have some European power allying with one of these Mongol princes, and then the Mongol prince and his forces flee and seek shelter in his kingdom.
Yes.
This is something that happens with the Golden Horde in like Poland, Lithuania, in the 14th and 15th centuries.
5 minutes left. Let's go.
And one other comment was made. I feel personally attacked by this video.
Frederick rode ahead,
Yes,
personally
specifically
leading the
you.
vanguard, inspiring his men who met the Mongols in the open plains. Meanwhile, the Ruthenians, situated at the other side of the river, sent arrows at the Mongols. Despite their best attempts, the charge could not break through the enemy ranks, and they were pushed back by the Austrian knights. However, that victory came at a heavy price, as the last member of the Babenberg dynasty, Duke Frederick, suffered a mortal injury. His men dragged him back while continuing the fight, allowing the Bohemian infantry to close in and engage thousands of dismounted warriors. The Mongol horse archers were ordered to circle around.
I really liked what I did here because Frederick the Quarrelsome really dies in 1246 attacking Hungary. So it's a really cool battle where he attacks Bela the Fourth. He beats him but then he dies, and his whole dynasty ends. And here's the best part about it: the death of Frederick is the birth of Habsburg Vienna.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the last member of the Babenberg dynasty, and Habsburgs are next. Go.
Around the main force, which proved incredibly effective, as they were able to fire at the side and back of the advancing Bohemians. But then the heavy mounted knights joined the fray, smashing into the Mongol flank. The nomads managed to keep their formation despite being surrounded, thus prolonging the battle that lasted well into the evening. At this point, a group of knights located Order and engaged his bodyguards. Many of them perished, but by the end of the fight, one of them managed to land a killing blow to Georgi's firstborn and Chinggis Khan's first grandchild. Most of the Mongol army perished, with only a few dozen exhausted, betrayed, and wounded riders managing to scatter across the countryside.
Can you pause it?
Bohemia managed.
So in real life, Orda would become the ruler of what's called the Blue Horde, the eastern wing of the Golden Horde.
Oh.
And he becomes for a while, he's like the senior figure in the empire and quite a powerful guy, but we don't actually know when he dies. He basically just, like, 'cause there's not really good source coverage of that area in that specific period. So he just kind of disappears at some point in the 1250s. So it's good to finally have closure on his life.
To inflict the greatest defeat on a Mongol army yet. Few Mongols survived, but those who did told the story of the Ruthenian betrayal and Order's defeat, which infuriated the Mongol leaders. While the defeat at Olomouc was a crushing blow to the Mongols, they still had tens of thousands of men on the field, who now had even more cause to conquer the rest of the continent. Khadan wasted no time mourning the death of his cousin and unleashed his fury on Bohemia. In October 1246, after devastating the countryside, the citadel of Kaslor was assaulted with human projectiles until the defenders surrendered. But before he could attack an army or Prague itself, he received a letter from Subutai, who ordered him to pull back and regroup. As for Batu, after he learned that his older brother died at the hands of the Duke of Austria, he subjected Vienna to unspeakable horrors, and the city fell to a combination of psychological warfare, mangonels, and sappers on October 1st, 1246. As Vienna fell, another letter was circulating the royal courts of Western Europe. Innocent, bishop, servant of the servants of God. Though we are engaged in difficult matters and distracted by manifold anxieties, yet among those things which demand our constant attention is the Tatar advance. Indeed, the wicked race of the Tatars, seeking to subdue or rather utterly destroy the Christian people, having gathered for a long time past the strength of all their tribes, have entered Christendom. So savage has been their devastation that their sword spared neither sex nor age, but raged with fearful brutality upon all alike. It caused unparalleled havoc and destruction in these countries in its unbroken advance. I am pierced with the deepest sorrow for our brothers and sisters, but there is still hope. By the grace of our Lord, one of the infidel armies was vanquished by the joint forces of King Wenceslaus and Duke Frederick of Austria, who gave his life to protect our realm. Therefore, the Church beg, urge, and earnestly command all of you, as far as you can, to take up the cross and arms, follow their example, and defend the Christian faith and lands. We lay it down that at an opportune time, to be made known to all the faithful by preachers and our special envoys, all who are ready to take the cross should gather at suitable places for this purpose, so that they may proceed from there with the blessing of God and the Apostolic See to the assistance of our brethren in the East. The Bohemian victory was the rallying cry which echoed through the lands as thousands of crusaders readied their arms to join in this new expedition and drive the Mongols back before it was too late. How far could the Mongols go against a unified Europe, who now knew that they were not invincible? Would this campaign spell disaster and undo even the first invasion? Or would the Mongols find a way to go further than the Huns and raze Rome to the ground? The next episode of this alternative history series is on the way, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell button. Please consider liking and sharing. This goes a long way to help us in the eyes of the almighty algorithm. We'll try to read and respond to every comment, as we want to see what you think about this video and which videos you hope to see in the future. Your feedback is very important to us. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.
helped write the
Editing.
He usually edits
editing.
the
Okay.
scripts.
Yeah.
Was
Okay.
that second letter, was that the one Peter wrote?
That one was
This
from
video
Johan.
and
Johan. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
Oh, what happens next?
Yeah,
Right?
this is really interesting.
I was wondering what would it take for the Mongols to lose at full throttle, and it took
There we go.
a betrayal, terrain difficulties, a trick, and a lot of European knights. But the story,
Crusaders.
it begins with a Mongol defeat, which I think is an interesting plot twist people won't expect.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be super ignorant about this, but from my viewpoint, Crusaders would do absolutely terrible against Mongolians. Like, I can't see a worse matchup. How are they going to, in especially the horseback mounted men of the Crusaders, they're not going to have the mobility to deal with Mongols.
Well, you know, but
You would be
at
surprised.
times they do, you know, it's a similar matchup during some of the Crusades where you have this heavy cavalry versus more lightly armored archers on horseback. And, you know, there are defeats and then there's times where it's successful. And usually a lot of these successes are like the Crusaders managed to get off a surprise charge, actually maintain good order and could use, like, there's might be the Third Crusade. There's some like mention where the armor is actually too strong for the bows to penetrate on some of the knights, and that knights are like covered like pin cushions, and they're like breaking off arrows or something.
How are Mongols on the other side of a siege when they're being besieged?
What?
Well,
Well, that's it. Like, I've never thought about that.
the thing is, it doesn't really happen that often that they're the ones being besieged. More normally, it would be some garrison of local peoples they've left in there as their representatives, rather than, because the Mongols themselves, and like as in, even if they're Mongols or Turkic or whatever, as in nomadic horsemen, are generally not staying in the cities themselves, or they'll be stationed in like fields around the city or something.
So if the Crusaders are unified, sure, we'll call it like that, and they're trying to take a piece of Europe that's been conquered by the Mongols are just going to leave it and come back. Like, it's the only way I would see it going forward. They're not going to stand their ground and hold a fortified city.
When you say Crusaders, like, the Pope here is calling for a crusade, but a Crusader could be a pilgrim who's there with nothing. It could be a guy with a stick, or it could be a knight with retinue, with squires and a whole ensemble of guys with them. And by the way, for those of you who's wondering about the alternative matchup and what would happen, in my Fourth Crusade series, after they take Constantinople, there's quite a lot of battles between the Bulgarians and the Crusaders. And the thing is, the Bulgarians are actually, most of their army is Cumans, which they're like the discounted Mongol versions, right? And there you have big defeats for the Crusaders and big wins. And what surprised me is something like 500 mounted knights taking down several thousand horse archers. Yeah, like crazy numbers you wouldn't assume, but it happens. Like, if there is an antidote to the Mongols, and there kind of isn't, but the closest thing that I can think of, I don't know about you, Jack, but from what I've seen, the closest thing I can think of a sort of a kryptonite is a well-led, very disciplined, heavy knight force that doesn't break cohesion.
Well, that cohesion, that's one of the main things
Mhm.
is the Mongols are always very good, and nomadic armies in general are very good at taking advantage of part of the army decides to chase the nomads or something like that. Now,
And
it's
it's a
not,
feudal world.
we should emphasize too, the Mongols have fought with European heavy cavalry. They fight with
Yeah.
them at
Muhi.
at Muhi, at Liegnitz. There's Templars at Muhi,
Yes.
and they make a good show of themselves, and they are killed to a man. So it's
yeah.
it, and like I think the mistake people will make is that they're always like it's either or. Either the Mongols
Yes.
wipe the floor with them, or the knights wipe the floor with them.
Yes.
Not that there's a give and take. There's going to be advantages to both. Personally, to me, I'd argue heavily armored, also horse archers are, if you want a sort of offensive capability against the Mongols, are kind of where you want to. This is something employed with the Jin dynasty's best armies, the Delhi Sultanates, the Mamluk Sultanate, like
Yeah.
the Mamluks of Egypt. They're actually Mamluks in Delhi and Egypt. But
Mm-hmm.
it's this ability to actually, if you have experienced guys who fight the same way as the Mongols, but their equipment is better,
Yeah.
that's actually your best recipe for meeting them one-on-one. Because with this European heavy cavalry, I mean, it's great if they can close the gap.
Yeah.
Which
They do
it's-
here because of the terrain. Like many
Yeah.
times when the Mongols get beaten, it's very much because of the terrain.
Mhm.
And here, they are really stuck. Forests, that Morava River, it's a big river, and it's hard to cross. And the city of Olomouc is that. It's the place where the river is shallower, but it controls the bridges. You have to take Olomouc if you want to pass, and because they hear the news that Batu is actually they're planning to sorry, not Batu, Kadan. They're planning to hit Kadan. Orda gets worried, but that was actually a trick. And that's a little bit of what, like, they're using the Mongol strategy against them with the letters and stuff. So yeah, they make them cross that river, and then that crucial point is Daniel Gulis's betrayal.
Yeah.
And they do push him to the edge. They do use them as cannon fodder, as meat shields in this campaign. And there's a point where they see an opportunity and they take it. We've seen it happen. And at the end, those revolts that you see, here's what's making this thing interesting. So the Mongols, let's recap. The Mongols have completely subjugated the Balkans. They have crushed Hungary. Hungary will, like in our timeline, Hungary's population drops by 60%. Now it's even worse. Bela is captured. Poland is trashed, with one guy being consolidating 2/3 of Poland. The Teutons almost lost everything. The Baltic is taken. But here's the trick here. Number one, Bohemia defends itself, takes the life of the first grandchild of Genghis Khan. And all of Galicia, plus the territory in Poland, namely Krakow and Sandomierz, which they have been given to occupy and hold for the Mongols, all of that is now their enemy. All of that is now an open revolt under the son of Daniel Leo I.
Mm-hmm.
So now where the episode will go be super interesting. But the most important takeaway from this episode is not actually what they conquer. With this battle, you see a whole different side of the Mongols. Jack knows very well that when someone betrays you, like especially like Daniel does, and when someone kills a Mongol prince, now you're in trouble. Now the rules are changed, and everything's gonna go. So now it's all or nothing. Before this, it wasn't. Now there's no withdrawal, Jack. I hope you agree with this. Now they're gonna go for the Pope, for the French king, for all or nothing. There's no withdrawal. And maybe they'll be careless, but maybe they will burn Europe to the ground.
There's a son of Genghis Khan who was killed during the campaign in the Rus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's not one of the four main sons. He's actually the son with a lesser wife, and his name is.
Yeah.
Oh, why can't I remember his name? I know it too. This is going to annoy me. And he's one of the lesser sons.
Yes, yeah.
But he ends up killed in battle by the Rus, and this results in just horrific destruction. And
Yes.
because depending on
Horrific.
like, there's some arguments that some of these Rus princes in the north had actually been like about to or had given their official submission to the Mongols, and then there ends up being this battle on the Sit River, and then it just transforms the campaign into the one of like this whirlwind of destruction.
Yeah.
There's
Also another example. After the Mongols lose the Battle of Parwan under a lesser commander, the Khwarezmians smell blood, right? And when they smell blood, a lot of them rebel. A lot of them who previously
the commander
were
wasn't just a lesser commander. He was Shigi Hutuhu, so he was an adopted son of Chinggis and like the chief judge of the empire. This is actually a pretty important guy.
Sorry, I said lesser, meaning I didn't, not one of the main family members, not Ogedei, but still very important figure, and a lot of Mongols were killed. So Chinggis had to send a message because a lot of cities who previously submitted to the Mongols now rebelled, and they were laid to the ground. Like completely, you have the Mongols have two different modes, and now what they'll be doing to Europe will be completely different, and that may make them careless, and that may take one of their big weapons from them, because depending on how they react, you could see a Bulgarian insurrection, a Polish insurrection, Alexander Nevsky insurrection. Alexander Nevsky may stab Subutai in the back because Subutai really trusts him at this point. Everything is up for grabs because of how this first battle goes on. So that's for the script.
We have a question actually.
Oh, okay, perfect, great.
Okay, so I'm gonna read this guy's question. One question: he's always wondered what the Mongol infantry was like. You always hear about their light cavalry, but not the infantry so much.
Great question. Jack?
Well, the infantry is the subject peoples.
Yep.
It's going to be often they have something called hushar. So this is employed a lot in like the Khwarezmian campaigns, deployed in Hungary, it's employed in China. And what it literally is like prisoners and people from villages forced ahead of the army to push like things like siege equipment, literally fill in moats with their bodies, and sometimes sent against actual other armies and things. But most of their professional infantry, these are just made up of subject peoples. The Mongols do dismount to fight sometimes, but there's the occasions or things like they're mounting city walls. There's occasions against the Mamluks where they seem to have run out of arrows and their horses are exhausted, and it's sort of like a way to signal we're fighting to the death. There's an occasion in southern China. The king of Myanmar invades what's now Yunnan province, but it was Mongol territory at the time. And he comes with elephants, and the scent of the elephants scare the horses, so the Mongols dismount to shoot at the elephants and then remount their horses. So the Mongols themselves are only dismounting in kind of extreme circumstances, and they definitely don't prefer to do it. Like, for instance, when they're getting on the city walls to fight themselves, one of the things that comes up is the Mongol princes have to rally the troops into doing this. Have to make a show of being the bravest. One of our first mentions of Subadai's experience in battle is there's a siege of a city in North China in 1212, and he's mentioned as being the first one up on the walls.
Wow!
Because this was a sign of great valor that you're brave enough to get on foot and climb up a ladder and get onto the walls.
It is very tricky. I was writing the Siege of Antioch not too long ago, and multiple accounts tell how people are getting up the wall, and because there are too many people on the wall, the ladder breaks and many fall to their death. And they didn't just die, like a lot of them in full armor. They fall and they get something like they get spinal cord damage. So they're paralyzed neck down. So they're screaming, they're feeling the pain, they're in agony. They're like, what just happened? I fell from that. And everyone's looking at them and like, I'm not getting up on that thing. So siege ladders was actually quite the nightmare.
Well, imagine you're climbing up a ladder, you're holding a shield over your head, There's guys throwing rocks at you. They're shooting
Yeah.
arrows at you. They got spears
Yeah.
pointing down at you. By the time you get to the top of the ladder, now you got to find your balance and
Yeah.
try and pull your weapon out at the same time. It's cumbersome. It's awkward. Like
Yeah.
that would be awkward even if people weren't trying to kill you at the same time.
It is. What I just
Oh.
explained to you was a night ambush, and there were no defenders. They didn't know that. They thought they would be lured into a trap. It wasn't a trap. They were let in by a spy inside, but even without any defenders, they still the ladder broke and they died. A dozen knights died. Knights.
Yeah, it's
Oh, history doses here.
History
Hey,
knows.
wow. Hey there, Chris.
And he says, oh god, just waiting for Jackmeister to tear apart Gorky's Mongols or humanitarians take.
Oh, I mean, come on, Chris. Listen, Jack, please help me out here. I'm trying to tell people that the Mongols, that their genocide was at least selective, right? Not all the time.
it's-
Like most medieval armies didn't even care. It's just genocide. Genocide is like just another Tuesday. With the Mongols, you had a choice.
yes and no. Because their preference is a city just surrenders.
Yes.
And that there's no fighting. Because that's the best for
Yes.
everyone. They don't have to go to the effort.
Yes.
Now, especially in the Khwarezmian campaign, the utter destruction of a city, the towers of skulls and
Yeah.
these things, it seems there's sort of a threefold intention here. It's a message to other cities. If you don't surrender, this is what will happen to you.
Yeah.
And it
yeah.
happens consistently enough that it's an effective message. Sorry. It's also, you don't have to come back and put a garrison in a troublesome city if there's no
Yeah.
troublesome city left.
Yeah.
And there's also argument, it's kind of a way to take out pent-up anger at when a city dares to submit.
Yeah.
There is a son-in-law of Chinggis Khan who was killed in the Khwarezmian campaign outside of Nishapur.
Yeah.
And he's killed by an arrow outside the walls. The Mongols can't take the city immediately. And then they come back, and of course, Nishapur suffers horrific destruction.
Yeah.
However,
Okay.
there's also a lot of occasions where the Mongols just kill people anyways.
No, Jack.
Like,
No.
for instance,
Of course.
I
Damn
mean,
it.
there's one of the siege tactics is you go around an area.
Yeah.
So you have, say, a major city in sort of this center point.
Yeah. You
And
slaughter
so
all
the armies will
villages
go
around.
through this whole area and basically clear out these villages and
Yeah.
drive all the people into the center here.
Or use them as human shields.
There's the Mongols apparently had to be convinced out of killing everyone in northern China and not turning it into pasture. Apparently,
Yeah.
it took 10 days to convince them not to do that. Like, it was like 10 days of continuous arguing about why this would be a bad idea. Subadai
Yeah.
is specifically described as personally wanting to kill all the people in the Jin capital when it falls.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of examples of them going out of their way to just do absolutely horrible
Of course.
things. Now, it's
But,
because it's a
but when the
tool.
Crusaders take a city, like there's so many cases of Crusaders and non-Crusaders and all kinds of armies saying, "Hey, if you surrender this citadel or castle or city or whatever, we're going to spare you." The citizens surrender, and then they slaughter them anyway. Like,
Well, the Mongols also do that on a couple occasions.
oh,
Dude,
okay,
I mean,
thank you,
not,
Chris.
it's
Thank you,
there
Chris.
is a, like I said, there's a preference for this order of operations I mentioned before, but we
Yeah.
have times like even during the Khwarezmian campaign
Mhm.
where the garrison comes out, the Mongols tell the garrison, because the garrison are Turks, like
Yeah.
Turkic mercenaries, and the population are Central Asian, like Iranic peoples. And so the Mongols tell the garrison to come, or the garrison, I forget, comes out on its own to submit to them
Yeah.
or something. And the Mongols basically go, these guys aren't very trustworthy, and just kill them.
Oh my god. No.
During the withdrawal from Hungary, the Mongols had a large body of prisoners and these Hushart peoples who had been sort of for them and things.
Look at him. He's a walking Mongolian encyclopedia.
And
like, damn.
One of our eyewitness accounts, he's a churchman. I forget his exact position. His name, though, he's called Master Roger Rogerius, and he ends up sort of attached to this Mongol army, and there he's going with them, and he notices the Mongols start to reduce their rations and kind of just stop giving them rations. And Roger kind of figures this isn't looking good, so he excuses himself. He gets off the trail to take a leak or something, and then he hides in the bush. And the Mongols keep marching, and then they turn around and just kill all of the Hungarians and people they had with them, and like heap up their bodies and things. So there's times when it's a tool, and then there's like,
please tell me he logged out.
Okay, so Juggernaut 999 repeats after him. Mongols exist. Japanese tsunami said, I took it personally. And then
Nice.
And then I said that Georgi is a Mongol propagandist.
No.
Georgi's paid off by the Mongols. That's why he described in loving
If I
detail.
was, why would I make their first battle a defeat? Actually, let's
sprinkle
bring it back.
a little doubt into this. Like, Mongols just win.
So what did you guys think about the animation? My first ever try.
That was excellent.
Yeah,
really.
I thought the one thing I noticed is your units, like little blocks, seem to move a lot quicker around and cover more distance than they normally do.
I noticed that, and it wasn't like this in the preview. I don't know what happened. So like the intro and the outro are done not by me. I don't know if it had something like that. I don't know if it was the render process.
It's
but
the render process. It has like just a point second of a difference, and it makes it look different.
I noticed the way I was doing the script, because guys, one thing I can tell you, your animators, the people who animate your scripts, now that I'm on the other side, no one has listened to your script more than them. I know the script by heart because there's passages, that battle passage in particular, especially when more things are happening, you would listen to something like 3 seconds 40 times to just get the keyframes just right. And after doing that, I wouldn't let such a quick thing. And it happened a couple of times. It wasn't like that all the time. Yeah, so it has to
gives
be
them a really
with the
weightless effect.
Yeah.
There
was sometimes when it was
blocks
intentional.
had that much weight.
Yeah, when Baiju was chasing Bella, I intentionally made it twirl a bit to simulate a chase, right?
Yeah.
But in the actual battle, that was just like a glitch. What do you think of the map? Was it too confusing? Did you get used to it by the end of it?
I got used to it.
Yeah, for me too. I'm familiar with maps of Europe, like for that period. So looking at it, I got it kind of immediately. I can see, though, if this was an area you don't know at all, like you look at like the Holy Roman Empire and just go, what is this?
Yeah.
So I think you could almost make the names of Kingdom of France, Holy Roman Empire, make those more apparent and make kind of the borders more obvious too. Remember at the start when I was saying about like
the red lines on the Mongols
and the Rus print, like even though you line the borders in red, that doesn't show up. Like especially green and red aren't high contrast colors. So if it's only a thin line of red, that's very hard to pick out. Immediately.
What I will say here is that I made the map quite a while before I started animating. The map was the first thing I made. Now that I've done both, I learned a lot of things and how it would look. For example, you can zoom a lot during the video, which allows you to have some liberties with the map more. But you don't need to understand the France or HRE or Italy right now because the video doesn't get into them.
Yeah.
The next one will, and I'll do a better job in making things clear.
But I mean, the map itself, that's one of the most difficult maps that you could ever have to create. So I think you did the best possible job with what you had to work with.
Thank you so much. Anything else on anything that caught your eye?
Color choices.
For the maps, you mean?
The color
For
choices for the
anything.
maps. My God, because I don't know if I'm looking too far into this, but I would almost want like more of a legend put on just to explain
Okay.
rationales for colors, because you went through all this effort to actually pick certain things, and it's
Yeah.
almost tragic if people don't know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jack,
It
they can see
there.
what you're right, by the way, but whatever.
For the map, it's interesting that like I struggled at one point at flags as well because
Uh,
everyone are picking the same colors on their heraldry. Everyone's
yeah, of
going for
course.
red. Everyone's going for yellow.
And you'll never see purple because it's a rare color, and etc.
Yes. Green, purple are super rare. Gray are super rare. Everyone, but red is everywhere on everyone's flag. It's just crazy.
Alternate History Hub Cody, he did a few episodes on like the history of
Yeah.
flags, and it's a good watch, and it explains
Yeah.
why flags some are bland and why a lot of them are alike and stuff.
Yeah. That was tricky. What are the things you look forward to the most in the story going forward, and where do you think it could go? And if you were writing this thing somehow, like what would you do? Like you have to make a guess right now. How does this series end?
Well,
Welcome back, Jack.
I mean,
Spanish Habsburg victory.
Spanish.
I mean,
the Mongols discover North America.
And settle
alternate
Quebec.
timeline: Mongol Canada by 1642.
Yes.
I mean, to me, just based off of this, I don't remember if we talked about what would happen beyond this. I don't know.
No. We need to have that talk though.
You've not indicated to me what that would be.
No, I haven't.
So I would say my guess is the current campaign's not going great. It's not good to start a campaign off with a major defeat. And
this happens 1 year into the campaign.
Yeah,
quick reminder, right?
Still early
Almost
on, and
here.
now there's a large revolt in the back.
Yes.
So I would say this is going to put a damper on the offensive capabilities because they're probably going to want to send people back to deal with that. Secure the lines of communication, secure the lines of supply, because you can't leave a large uprising in your rear. And the simple fact of the matter is Germany, Holy Roman Empire, it's not going to be easy to campaign quickly through. If there's any level of unity among the German princes, this is a substantial force. Even without that, that's so many territories and fortified sites, and just what are they bypassing? What are they choosing to siege? It's so many decisions. There's I would imagine one of the things that comes across in the campaigns
If you want,
in China,
you can just
especially
pull up the map at the end of the video, Craig, just for references.
But one of the things that comes across in the campaigns in China, especially the Song Dynasty, is almost a sense of fighting for every inch of ground.
Mm-hmm.
And the Song Dynasty, this gets unfairly dismissed as getting sort of run over by the Mongols. The Song Dynasty resists for 40 years, not necessarily continuously, but this is basically 40 years of on and off warfare. Now, the Song Dynasty's population is an order of magnitude larger than what's in Europe at the time.
Yeah.
But I would say from the Mongol point of view, they think victory is inevitable, but they don't think it has to be done in a single campaign. I'm sure they would prefer if this was all done, by
Doesn't the death of Orda
Christmas.
Doesn't the death of Orda change that though? I agree with you up until the death of Orda. And another interesting thing, you see where Galicia is? Daniel,
Yeah.
the guy who made this betrayal, massive betrayal, he led to the death of Orda. He's in Bohemia. He is not with his people. His son is. So the Mongols will have two big priorities right now: destroy Galicia, reestablish control in eastern Poland, but also take down the biggest center with the most population, 50,000 people, from what we can tell, of Prague. There are bigger cities. I think Venice has more. I'm not sure if Milan has more, but north of the Alps and outside of the lowlands, Prague is the biggest center. And the interesting thing here is, if you take over Bohemia, the everything, if you draw a line between Bohemia and the green line with the Rhine League, everything north of that, except for Brandenburg, it's in shambles. They are incredibly divided. That's where the HRE is weakest. And the emperor is not in Germany. He is campaigning in Italy.
He's kind of in Germany on this map, though.
Yeah, sure, because his homeland is Swabia, but
Because
his base
the animator left him there.
His base is Sicily and Naples.
Yeah, well, didn't he prefer? I think Friedrich. I think he preferred Sicily to Germany, anyways.
Yeah,
Super Mundi
so.
hated
Very
Germany. I would say regarding Daniel.
Yeah.
One thing the Mongols did with princes who submitted is that their sons are brought into the Keshik. Sons, younger brothers, these are brought into the bodyguard, where they also serve as hostages and things.
Yeah.
So probably Leo, in this case, would not have been left in Alich. Or Leo, or what was Daniel's brother? Oh, I know it.
Yeah.
Daniel has a. Anyway,
Leo was in great relationship with Noyan, by the way.
With yeah. Well, and anyways, so whatever.
Nogai. Oh, sorry,
member,
Nogai.
Yeah, I knew what you.
Yeah.
You meant. I wrote my thesis on that guy.
I know. That's why I mentioned him.
But so probably whatever family member of Daniel
Yes.
has been left in the Mongol army. Now I don't know who's, probably Batu's, who knows. Whatever Daniel has just by betraying Orda here, Daniel has just consigned that family member to death, because that's that family member, and depending on the relationship with the Khan, it's not impossible that if he's loyal enough, then it's we're going to kill your father and put you on the throne, right? Or we send you back, and on our behalf, you have to go and quiet that rebellion. So
the Alps will be really tricky. I know a lot of people bring up China and how high the Chinese ranges are, and that's valid. But I've read a lot about these Alp passes, man. I read about the steepness that Hannibal had to go through. It really, I think the best hope for Europe would be this papal letter to be taken seriously, and for them to try to hold up every pass and hold out Italy. Germany doesn't have much luck, but you can at least save Rome, and you can at least save northern Italy just filled with people. Because if they get through the passes, if you take a look at it, if you Google geographic map of Italy, if you get through the Alps, everything around Milan, Ravenna, Ferrara, Padua, that's gone. That's just gone.
yeah, I mean, didn't we discuss
It's
this
flat.
about
It's
coming
a complete flatland.
coming through Slovenia, and I don't.
It's doable.
That might be preferable over trying the Brenner Pass or something like that.
Yeah, totally. We'll see.
See,
How do you guys want to wrap it up?
What's I guess what's sort of the timeline for the release on part 2, part 3? Are you reluctant to get into animating again?
Part 2.
No, I can't wait. I can't wait to get back into it. In a month, part 2 will be out.
So maybe we'll do the same thing.
Hopefully, I really enjoy this. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah,
How did it feel?
absolutely.
First live, first commentary.
I think it went really well because there's a lot of things that could have gone wrong, and
Yeah,
it worked out. It's actually, I have to say, it's pretty good streamlined. Zoom, for all of its pitfalls, proved
True.
effective.
true, true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really want to thank you for your comments. Honestly, this is my first time. I'm obviously gonna get better and better as I go. I've learned so much through this whole process. There's a lot of things now, like which were a struggle earlier. I know how to order things. I know what to focus on first. So this will really help me. And I feel like the writing is feeding the animation and vice versa. So I'm very curious how this next one, because the script isn't fully ready. I have an idea, it's in my head, but this will be the first script I write, keeping in mind what the rules of animation are, which means that I can make it synergize really well.
Do you have a time period you're constrained to, or is this carrying much more into the, like, are you going centuries ahead, or are you going to keep it contained within?
I don't. The plan is this. I want to go a full Mongol campaign, and they usually are 4 to 6 years.
Mhm.
We're gonna go the campaign. This is gonna go to the 1250s, and if this picks up, if people really enjoy this might be an actual world, and we can go another 5 years or 50 years after whatever happens at the end of this series.
Mongols in
But no,
space.
Mongols in space. We could go there, but no, like whatever ending you imagine for this series in your head, whatever it is, you gotta imagine answering questions like, what happens with the Black Death? What happens with the Mongol Empire? Because Jack, imagine these guys overstretch. A lot of key figures die. What does the Mongol Empire collapse faster? Does it fragment faster? Does Batu makes a bid for everything and goes up against Guyuk or whoever? Because if Batu takes over even more land, the Golden Horde could basically eclipse the rest of Mongolia, maybe. And if he makes a huge success, all of these warriors, they will be super loyal to him, especially if Subutai's out of the way. So what happens to the Black Death? What happens to Constantinople? If Rome burns to the ground, which is possible, what happens to Christianity? What happens to Catholicism, right?
Oh, was
There's-
this all just a way of you saving Constantinople? Is that the purpose of this?
Listen, Constantinople right now in this moment, if you see the map, is under the Latin Empire. It just so happens.
Mm.
So within 50 years, if Rome burns down and Constantinople was sacked still and under Latin control, this would be the worst century for humankind, for sure.
From the humanitarian group that you call the Mongol Empire, right?
Yeah.
Who never did
I mean, they
anything
killed
wrong.
Orda. They killed Orda. Come on. No. But there's a lot of possibilities. But for this series in particular, I can tell you it's probably going to be 4 or 5 episodes in total, each of them covering about a year.
Tell you right
Okay.
now, one of my most popular and most demanded pieces of content that I got,
Yeah.
actually, it was Kings and Generals fans who screamed at me the most, was they wanted to, the age-old, for some reason it's an age-old question, what if the Japanese just attacked the Russians? Like, that was it was an
Yeah.
option or something. And I really went in depth. I read some PhD papers on exactly where units were, why it wouldn't have
Yeah.
mattered, if they had gone through with it, the logistics, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I gave, like, still, it was an hour-long conversation with a friend. I'm wondering if I did something like you and I actually tried
Yeah.
to portray it as a video to show
Yeah.
how it would go down. You're just tens of thousands of Japanese freezing in Siberia. Maybe it'd be interesting. So you've invigorated my passion too.
I'm really
Yeah.
happy. And if this series does well, Wizards and Warriors could become the place where alternative history starts to thrive, and there's more series.
Well, there's a certain somebody who's been saying this for a while.
Nice. Yeah. What I will warn you about, though, is that nothing takes more time, nothing takes more research, nothing takes more effort.
Yeah.
And you will find yourself in the bathroom walking or whatever you are thinking, asking questions, Googling all these kinds of figures, figuring out what the relationship between them, who was allied to who was married to who died when. Because if I go past, like, imagine I go past, I enter the year of 1248, right? And in our timeline, the figure in 1248 died of natural causes, but in this one he doesn't. That's stupid. Or if an earthquake occurred and it destroyed a certain city, but in this time it doesn't, that's bad writing. So you have to, it's a blessing and a curse because there's no other century that I know more than the 13th century because of this, because you can't just research the Mongols. You need to research the
everything.
Reconquista, the war between Louis and Henry, the what was Ireland like. I have a detailed description of what Ireland is like at this time. The Danish Holstein War, even here you saw it was relevant. This is the reason why Denmark lost Estonia. They were busy in the Holstein. So, but it gives you a clear picture of all of Europe at the time, which is why I would love this to be more popular, because people will, this is not just fantasy, they will learn a lot about our timeline through discovering this alternative one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, thank you so much for being here and watching this piece of content that took years to make. Jack, thank you so much for everything, man. Like, I'm in your debt for life. And
did the video actually go live? The Wizards and Warriors one?
Let's see.
I can check.
Not yet. We'll see. Maybe I got the date wrong. We'll see.
Just this episode, so
yeah, you saw it here first, ladies and gentlemen. The whole 5 of you.
Ilkin better not see this.
All right. Yeah, this was a blast, and I really look forward to do it again. Maybe next time we'll review some of the Pacific War Jackmeister's video.
I'll watch a Pacific War video and have no idea what's going on.
Please no. No, my animation's not very good. It's very embarrassing.
The last Pacific War video I watched was I should say the last video I watched about a conflict in Japan involved the Mongols, so I might be a little behind on on this series.
All right.
So, all right, boys.
This has been 2 Canadians and the Bulgarian. Cheers, everyone. The show.
Mongols did nothing wrong, guys.
No!